Welcome to another episode of the Football Weekly Podcast, episode 181. Oh boy, a roller coaster of emotions this week if you're an Arsenal fan, roller coaster of emotions if you're a Man City fan, roller coaster of emotions if you're any fan, pretty much. There are no gimmies in the sport anymore. Well, it's been like that for a number of years. But I mean, if you were to ask me at the beginning of the week, you beat Lens and lose to Man City, I would say, yeah, that's probably right. But have to have it go the other way. I feel bad for the bettors out there if you're betting money on this, but what on football and actually other sports as well. It's not pretty out there. But guys, the second episode of season 9. We started last week. If you haven't watched that episode, watch that. Lots of stuff going on in the world of football. We'll make it short and sweet tonight. We'll start off with actually some sad news. You're a football fan. If you're an English football fan, you hated this team, unless you were a fan of them, obviously. But Manchester United, you hated them just because of all the perks and the all the things that were seemingly handed to them most times. There was their manager, Sir Alex Ferguson, was feared by referees and the FA, so usually got his way. Debatable. We can have that debate for hours and days and months and years, but some sad news coming out of Manchester United. The club, his wife passed away this past week. Beyond football and my team versus your team, there is a human aspect to this. So he's never going to hear this. And I hate it when people do condolences. He's never going to hear it. But again, condolences to Sir Alex and his family and on the loss of his wife. I believe her name was Kathy. So all the Manchester United fans out there, if you're going through something similar, or if her death hit you hard, my condolences to you. But getting back to the football, what a week. I don't even know. Should we start with Champions League? No, you know what? Let's start. Yeah, screw it. Let's start with Champions League. Yeah, this is easy. We just rolled over PSG at home. PSG. I keep saying PSG. PSV at home the week before. 4-0. Very easy. We look to be the class of the group. People are saying Sevilla's not going to give us problems. I watch La Liga. Sevilla's going to give us problems. But we'll get into that when we do a preview of the next Champions. There's another international break this month, and I just realized there's another one next month. So another 2 weeks without football. Craziness. But anyways, Lens. I thought this game was cold chop. I thought this game was going to be so easy that I said, you know what? I'm not even going to stay home from work to watch it. I'm going to go to work because I can just catch the highlights of the 7-0 that we're going to give them. It's not even worth me staying home from work. I'm going to go to work because this should be so easy. By being the Arsenal fan and football guy that I am, I have an app that can play the sport, play the games, audio, not video. Don't come after me. Audio, not video. Don't come after me. So I was listening to the game. 11 minutes in, I believe it was Gabriel Jesus scores. I'm just like, okay. I'm gonna just turn it off and then come home and be surprised at the scoreline. And I kept listening. It was on in the background. 2 more goals by Lens. Unbelievable, man. Unbelievable. So some shockers in the Champions League, and Lens beating Arsenal 2-1 away from home, but still, you still should have enough to beat this squad. When I look at the lineup that he puts out, I'm talking about Arteta, and I've said this in previous shows, I believe. I have another podcast, Clock Enders is an Arsenal podcast. If you haven't subscribed or listened to that, listen to that. I have a problem with the way he sets up this squad. Very difficult to get the lineup wrong, and he always seems to get the lineup wrong. It's crazy. It's crazy. Out of desperation this past weekend, the lineup was the lineup, but again, a couple of tweaks in the lineup, and you're fine. We'll get into what happened this past weekend with Manchester City coming up, but it's just, don't get me wrong, I love Arteta. He's a great manager. He's brought us back to prominence, him and Edu doing what they do, but it's very difficult to get this lineup wrong, and it's wrong every game. Every game it's wrong. And you're going to look at me, well, Reggie, you're undefeated this season, so how can he be getting the lineup wrong every game? Granted, I'll give you that. We're undefeated. Have we played any top teams? Oh, hold on. Have we played any top teams yet? At the time, no. We played this weekend and we got the lineup wrong. Again, I said we'll get into that later. Well, let's get back into Champions League so we can end off the Champions League. There were a couple of shockers. Lens versus Arsenal being one of them. Something happened on the Geordie Shore that was just shocking to me. I thought for sure I was reading a typo. Newcastle beat PSG, got it right, PSG, 4-1. And I thought, oh, maybe it can't be PSG, not Mbappe's PSG. No. Are they in that group? And further investigation, yeah, it's PSG. It's PSG losing to Newcastle. Mind you, it was at St. James's Park. Mind you, it's only the second game of the group. Like the Arsenal game, it's only the second game of the group. Still have a ton of games to go. But that's not something that you're expecting. I wonder what the odds of Newcastle beating them were. Put a 3-team parlay of Real Madrid, Lens, and Newcastle winning. Oh, I wonder what that payout would be. Maybe another upset the way things are going, or past history has gone. Manchester United traveled to Turkey to play Galatasaray and lost 3-2. Manchester United are awful. Manchester United are awful. If you listen to the show, previous episodes, previous seasons, actually, I was the guy here begging for Ten Hag when Unai Emery was rumored to be being let go by Arsenal. I was Ten Hag 150,000%. Get this guy for what he's done at Ajax. Get him. I'm glad Arsenal doesn't listen to me. Listening to Ten Hag is like listening to, let's see that. Just the whining and the complaining and the reason because we lost is because of this. The reason that we lost is because of that. It has nothing to do with anything that he's saying. It's strictly on his shoulders and the players that he has at his disposal. He's the one who brought the players in. How Jadon Sancho doesn't get into this lineup, and I'm not, don't get me wrong, Jadon Sancho isn't the next coming of Maradona, believe me. But when you're in a position where you need all hands on deck, that guy he might be able to help you. It's just like we said last week, like I said last week about Vinko at TFC. He might be able to help you. Maybe you're not going to win the league or you're not going to make the playoffs. But a feel-good factor, he might be able to add a little bit of quality. Maybe we lose 2-0 or 1-0 or we tie 1-1 because he's on the field. You never know. But to banish players that can help you, I don't get it. I think Ten Hag is an egomaniac. Manchester United fans can get at me in the comments if you like, but the way he portrays himself for a guy on the outside looking in, which is me, he looks like an egomaniac. It's never my fault because of this, the ref, this team, that team, injuries, blah, blah, blah. Everyone has injuries. To blame the loss to Arsenal and during the league on, well, this guy was injured and that guy was injured and that team doesn't have any injuries and we haven't. Crazy. I mean, lots of results. We can go through them all. Inter won. They beat Benfica 1-0. I believe Dortmund played Milan. 0-0 to a 0-0 draw. My La Liga team, Atletico Madrid, beat someone 3-2. Real Madrid beat Napoli 3-2. Lots of games going on. I mean, Champions League is Champions League. Hopefully, we see the best of these teams going forward. But at the same time, you can't take teams for granted. Cannot take teams for granted. And I hope PSG, who cares? But I hope Arsenal has learned a lesson. You can't take teams for granted. There might have been a little bit of looking forward because their next league game was probably the biggest game of the season so far for Arsenal and in the EPL too. All eyes were watching that yesterday at 11:30 p.m. or 11:30 a.m. here in Canada. By the way, to my Canadians out there, happy Thanksgiving. It is a long weekend here. So it was a very, very eventful Thanksgiving yesterday. Lots of screaming and jumping and wine drinking and turkey eating and stuffing. So it was a very, very, very good day yesterday. Let's get into, before we get into EPL and Serie A and Ligue 1, we'll discuss those leagues. We'll do La Liga next week, Bundesliga next week. VAR. If you've been listening to this show or watching the show for the last, again, I might have mentioned it again last week. For the last 5-6 seasons, I told you VAR was going to ruin football or the EPL, going to ruin it. Everybody was like, no. VAR's what they need to get the calls right. But you're using VAR and you're still getting the calls wrong. And for the first time that I've heard, because I know rugby does it, rugby has, when the VAR is virtual referee is looking at something and talking to the referee, you can hear it. You can hear what they're saying to each other. So for the first time that I've come across, maybe it's happened before, I don't know, maybe. But for the first time, we actually got to peek into what VAR is saying to the referee. And if you haven't heard this, Google it, YouTube it, whatever, and listen to it. Watch. The thing that makes it bad is that you can see what they're looking at. You can see what they're looking at and what they're saying and how their mind is working and going through everything. And it's astonishing. It's astonishing. Like so, again, that's offensive, so I won't say that. It takes a special type of person or special type of people because there was more than one. You have two people looking at something, supposedly objective, looking at something. I, I, I don't know, man. If you have seen it, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, go look it up and watch and watch and watch. There's one guy on the video that's just like, well, wait a minute. You called, and we're talking about the goal, the offside goal in the Liverpool Tottenham game. We're talking about that goal where Luis Diaz was deemed offside when he was probably a foot and a half onside. To go back and watch that and then call it on offside and have another guy say, yeah, you know what, you're right, it is offside. It's astonishing. It's worrisome because one day that guy's going to be on the field reffing the game, and he's obviously not capable of refereeing. But the thing that I took away from that video was the one guy who was just like, well, wait a minute, you called it offside. Like, yeah, but it's not offside. Oh, well, we can't go back and change it now, so it's too late. Well, wait a minute. What are you guys doing there? Again, if you haven't listened to it, go back and listen to it. It's actually pretty funny to listen to and watch. These guys are in charge of the best and the biggest league in the world. Unbelievable. But anyways, I'm going to talk about VAR anymore. You guys know my feelings on it. It's trash. The only way to fix VAR, in my opinion, because you can do VAR from anywhere. I can do VAR from here for English Premier League. You have to have a rotating VAR schedule. This is the only way to fix it in England. I don't hear of this in any other leagues. Maybe they don't use it, but I don't hear about stupidness like this in any other league. So if you're going to use VAR in England, English referees cannot be on the VAR. It cannot be. It's got to be referees from a different federation. And you rotate them. So one week it's the Italian FA. Their referees are doing the VAR because they don't know the referees on the field. If you screw up, I'll tell you because I don't know you. I don't care. But if you have English referees, you know, refereeing and looking and assisting other English referees who are buddies, I don't want to make you look stupid. So we'll just go with what you say. And even if it's wrong. And this is what's happening. You can see it's happening. You can see it now. That's what's happening. I've said it for years, but now you can see it. The proof is there. Proof is there. So get different federations to do the VAR for England. And then you have to start, Howard Webb has to start weeding out the weak links. Because there are some bad referees in England. Bad. You miss a call, no problem. Miss a couple of calls, no problem. But you're missing the whole game. Some of them are missing the whole game. Anyways. Biggest game of the season, biggest game of the weekend, I should say. Biggest game of the season. That could be true as well. Manchester City versus Arsenal. How does this game go every single year? We lose. We being Arsenal. We lose. I haven't beaten Manchester City 6 years. What it was, 7 years, 8 years? 2015, I believe, or 16. I haven't beat them since then. Is this the best chance you have to beat them? Probably. De Bruyne is not playing. Rodri's not playing. I don't rate Rodri, but apparently he's the best holding midfielder in the world. I don't rate him. I don't know what he does that makes him the best holding midfielder in the world. But anyways, I've been told by Gary Neville, so it has to be right that he's the best. De Bruyne, that's a big miss. He usually scores or pops up with an assist or two against Arsenal. So that's a big miss. I'll take that one. Rodri, I don't know. How is a holding midfielder going to be make a difference in that game. But anyways, your boy Haaland, normal. And I'm gonna have it looks like a normal player out there. And I'm gonna make a bold statement here. Not to put too much pressure on the kid, but if William Saliba plays last year in the run-in, we win the league. I know the comment goes out there, oh, he had him in his pocket, he had him in his pocket. If you didn't watch the game, he had him in his pocket. Haaland did nothing. Against Gabriel, maybe. Gabriel is not as physical, maybe not as strong, as fast. Maybe doesn't read the game as quickly as Saliba. But he was there to snuff out any danger, anything Haaland did, he was there to snuff it out. Again, Saliba plays in the run-in, we win the league. And if you're going to sit there and tell me Haaland, De Bruyne didn't play, so Haaland didn't play well, then you have an issue there. You have an issue. So for those of you that didn't watch the game, Arsenal won 1-0. People are saying, oh, it wasn't a good performance by Arsenal. It was a deflected goal. They all count. They all count. You're going to sit there and tell me that because it's deflected, it doesn't matter. It doesn't count. It's not a good game. Arsenal didn't really give them any opportunities to score. The possession that they had was, I don't know, the possession was close, but I mean, it wasn't deadly possession. Mourinho said it best. You can have the possession. I'll take the goals. You can have the possession for 99% of the game. If I beat you 1-0, I'll take the win. Possession doesn't mean anything. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Does possession mean that you controlled the game and shouldn't have lost? Oh, well, it depends. You're hitting the post, you're missing chances, and this and that and the third. Maybe, but that's not what happened yesterday. And the possession was close. I think it was like 52-48 possession in Manchester City's favor. Okay, no problem. Arsenal had more touches in the final third. They had more passes. They had more shots on net. They had more chances. They had more opportunities to score than Manchester City did yesterday. So what's happening with Manchester City? Are we done? Because they lost the week before to Wolves. Are we done with these guys now? Can we actually start watching football properly? Are we done with these guys now? Is that it? Pep's done? Or are we going to wait for De Bruyne and Rodri to come back to save them? That win for Arsenal puts them tied for first place with the other team from North London. That won't last long. When you're looking at beating a team or winning a league, you have to beat the teams that are going to be in the runnings with you at least once, if not twice. If we had won one game last year against Manchester City, just one of the two, just one, we would have won the league. We would have won the league. Just one game, if we had beat them once last year, we would have won the league. So it bodes well what's happening or what happened yesterday. You have to beat Manchester City at least once. You have to beat Liverpool at least once. Tottenham, United, Chelsea, at least once. You have to. Because if you do what you're supposed to do against the rest of the teams out there, those games are a wash. Beat up on the Brentfords and the Sheffields and the Nottingham Forests and the Luton and the whoever, and the Wolves and whoever. And those games are a wash. So Manchester City in third. I think Newcastle's in fourth. Arsenal's second place. I think by goal differential is the same. Maybe it's the win total or they have one extra draw or something like that. And that's why Tottenham's on top at this point of the season, going into another international break. So again, like I said, 2 weeks, no football. Ridiculous. And again, we're going to have another one in November. Ridiculous. Chelsea might be, starting to figure it out a little bit. I think there's two wins for them on the trot. United won again. Those guys are lower in the tables though. Another excellent game this weekend was Brighton Liverpool. If you didn't watch that, it's a 2-2 draw. That was an excellent game to watch, actually. I believe that was on Saturday. So if you guys have those replay channels, watch those games again. Brighton Liverpool, 100% watch that. Arsenal Manchester City, you can watch that. I believe Arsenal played excellent. They played the way you need to play if you want to get a result against Manchester City. And I think more teams are going to start looking at that blueprint that Mikel Arteta put together when going in to play Manchester City, because I know he took something from the Wolves game and implemented it into the game on the weekend. And just like Wolves, we beat Manchester City. So we'll move on to Serie A. Strange happenings in Serie A. And we're not even going to get into the Victor Osimhen penalty shot from a couple of weeks ago. What happened with Napoli there? I say, hey, Victor, there's clubs abroad that would love to have you. Love to have you. I know you're not watching, but still, we love to have you. You get what I'm saying? Milan was playing Genoa. I believe it was Genoa. And they had made all their substitutions. There was 7 minutes left in the game. They had made all their substitutions. And Mike Maignan, the goalie, got a red card. I have to look at it. I didn't really see what happened. So you got a red card regardless. What do you do now? You got to put a player in it. No, you're gonna put net. You put the biggest guy you have. Oh, that's Giroud. He's up top. Yeah, he's gonna have to go in the net. It's already 1-0. They're already up 1-0. So they put Giroud in the net. Olivier Giroud. Yes, that Olivier Giroud. France, former Arsenal, former Chelsea. That Olivier Giroud. They put him in the net. Apparently, he made a save too. That kept him in that. Kept the clean sheet, and also the 3 points for Milan. So if you haven't seen that, again, YouTube is your friend. Go look that up. Looking for it. See if I can see. That's a good save. It's a good save that kept Joe's team in it. So if you're looking at Serie A, the table at Serie A, I mean, you're talking about Milan being number 1, top of the table with their cousins very closely behind them, Inter, a couple of points back from them. You have the evil empire, the Juventus, behind them, and surprisingly, Fiorentina is in 4th place with Napoli just behind them. Some rumors coming out of Serie A as well on the coaching front. Familiar name, EPL, familiar name in Italy. Antonio Conte. I saw something in the papers. Antonio Conte might be taking over Roma if Mourinho can't get it together over there. I believe Roma won 4-1 this past weekend, so maybe things are starting to turn around there. But familiar recycled names being bandied about in Italy. How Conte can help them, help Roma, I don't know. From what I saw in Tottenham, when he was coaching Tottenham, which is tough to coach Tottenham, really. It is. I understand why he failed. Coaching guys like Richarlison and who's the other guy there? Who at the back? What the hell was his name? Christian Romero, and those guys. Well, what can you really do, right? But if Mourinho doesn't get it together, I think they were talking about maybe Antonio Conte taking over. But they're going on a pretty good streak right now. I think they've won 2 in a row. So we'll definitely keep our eye on that development for sure. it sucks that we're going into a two-week break again. You know, we don't do shows during international break, so not going to see this face for another 2 weeks after that. I think Arsenal plays Chelsea when we come back. Bukayo Saka looks to be injured. Trossard did his hamstring yesterday during the first half, so we're sweating on some fitness. The only good thing is Martinelli and Thomas Partey came back. And if you're watching that game, I know Martinelli scored, and everyone's bigging up Kai Havertz because he provided the assist. Watch the ball Thomas Partey plays. Probably 40 yards on the money to Tomiyasu. If you haven't seen it, watch it. Thomas Partey doesn't get enough credit for that. It's an excellent ball. So like I mentioned earlier in the podcast, I do have another Arsenal podcast. It's called The Clock Enders Podcast. You can find it on YouTube at Clock Enders Pod, I believe. At Clock Enders Pod, yep. Starting a new Instagram page called Fresh Footy. We're in the works of building that as the theme and what we're trying to do gets more established. I'll let you guys know a little bit about that as well, but look out for Fresh Footy on Instagram. As normal, if you're watching us, obviously, you know, we're on YouTube. The Football Weekly podcast is on YouTube. In a couple of weeks, we'll get back on Spotify and Apple Music and Amazon Music and all the podcast platforms that you use to stream. We'll be right back there in a couple of weeks. I got to do some back end work here, and I just haven't had the time to do it. But I promise next week, if you listen to our show on Spotify and those streaming platforms, we'll be right back on it next week. But yeah, I mean, we're on YouTube. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe. It's free. If you haven't subscribed anywhere, it's free. We're on Instagram. We're on Twitter. We are everywhere. Please subscribe. So guys, another 2 weeks off. Fantastic Thanksgiving yesterday. To all my Canadian friends, happy Thanksgiving today. Beautiful day yesterday, other than the Ravens blowing a game against the Steelers. But again, that's probably a different podcast, so we won't get into that. But guys, have a great day, and we'll catch you in 2 weeks.